Yep, there we go. Recording in progress.
Perfect.
Thank you, Tom.
You got it.
All right, it is 8:05. We might as well, I'll keep admitting people as they show up. We're gonna get the show on the road as people continue to pop in. Yeah, we'll just join in. We are recording, that way it can be shared with those who can't make it tonight. So thank you, Chris, for being willing to sit down with us and speak on what your thoughts are with running for president with the Farm Bureau. I appreciate it. I have a question that I'm going to ask both you and Rick when we meet with him. And then after that question, we'll kind of have a free-flowing conversation. And if people have a question as we're going, you can unmute yourself, raise your hand, and chime in. We want to try to make this as open a discussion as possible while respecting everyone as much as we can. So, all right, with that, I will read my prompt question and we'll get going. Vice President Hoffman, you served on the Pennsylvania Farm Bureau Board of Directors from 2006 until 2014 when you became the PFB Vice President. You have been on the PFB Executive Committee since 2008. In that time, PFB has had to sell SafeMark, discontinue the accounting services, and seen our membership fall by over half. While the change in nationwide agreement can be blamed for some of this, our state board seemed slow to react, even as the writing was on the walls, as Maryland had to go through the same process around 2015. With the PFB state office at Camp Hill seemingly to be in disarray for such a long time, why should we consider voting for you for president when you have been a leading voice at the table during this seeming dysfunction? What do you plan to change if you are to be elected president to help steady the sinking ship? Why have you not tried to put those things into place now? And if you have, what has been the resistance? And I know that was a lot, so I'm going to put that entire question in the chat. And however you want to address that, feel free. Thank you.
All right, that was a lot, and I'll try to get to all that. I appreciate the opportunity of actually getting an opportunity to talk with you all, and been traveling around the state, meeting with all the county farm bureaus, and learning and talking about what is really important to them, and what is kind of on the state of mind of each and every member. So to kind of answer this question, I did get on the board back in 2006 and got on the executive committee. And so a lot of things have changed over a period of time. When you start thinking about in 2006, 2008, we had a Carl Schaefer was the president. Carl Schaefer was a pretty strong leader. And that one of the things that we had to our advantage point at that point in time was we had an association healthcare. I think at the highest that I can recollect, we were making about $3 million a year in profits from that association healthcare. And there wasn't much discussion about SafeMart and back then about SafeMart and MSC Business Services, because one of the things that was always discussed is that this was for our members, that these things were for our members. These were for access to accounting service for farmers, with people who understood agriculture, and also with the tires. The tire sales was really a strictly thing for Twine and things for our members, and to say it was for profit probably wasn't probably the right statement, because it was more of a member service situation. And so as we've seen things move forward, and you've seen the association healthcare disappear, as we got into Obamacare, we started losing a lot of our revenue from the healthcare side of it, which then really created a drain on some of our for-profit businesses. So I can remember back in the day when Lou Sally was there, we were talking about SafeMart, and one of the things that we were going to do with SafeMart was we were going to be the Amazon of tire. And so we were spending money, supposedly, that, you know, we were getting updates, that we were putting together this online tool where people could actually buy tires, buy twine, buy whatever, and have it drop shipped right to them. And so we went through that for a couple of years of them trying to quote unquote build this thing, and realized that we weren't really getting anywhere. And that as we were discussing the SafeMart situation, it was getting to the place where we were having the manager come in and speak to us as a board, as an executive committee at the time, about his struggles. And more of our business was out of state. We were getting a lot of business in New York, and that it was getting more expensive to get up there. It was getting tougher and tougher on margins because we were basically a wholesale. And so as you look at it, we were not the Amazon of tires. We didn't that quote unquote online tool never came to tuition. And it got to the place where we had to make a decision of whether or not we were going to continue moving forward and trying to find that small margin with the cost of trucks and warehousing and all that stuff, or we had an opportunity to have a buyer that would come in and buy us. And so as times changed and things changed, it went from a member service to an actual trying to make it a for-profit. We were not set up in the Amazon tire world for a for-profit. And so when we had an opportunity to kind of sell the SafeMart division off, we in turn sold it, and with all the dollars that we got from selling it actually turned into a revenue at the end, where we could actually pay some of the money back that was borrowed on that division. And so again, we went through some management changes. Mikey Vanish left. He left the MSC, retired, and Lou Sally was still there. And there was a lot of back and forth about profits, losses, a lot of discussion about IT, a lot of discussion about different things. And so when Mikey Vanish left, we were almost breaking even based on the IT charges, the cross charges, what the building costs, this and that. But if you took all those things out, he was showing a positive bottom line. And so Lou Sally retired, Mikey Vanish retired, and we got Sam. And Sam came in and he hired Mike Polinsky. And so Sam told us, because the CAO is in charge of our for-profit businesses. He said that Mike knows what he needs to do to make this thing be profitable, and that he's going to be making changes, but we got to give him some time. And so, again, we went from a member service where breaking even was okay to okay, it's got to be for profit. And one of the things that happened in 2018, Sam was probably on the job for a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer. And I brought up Sam in an executive meeting that I'm not seeing a forward motion for MSC, and that it seems like we're losing clients. So how many folks do we have in MSC? How many clients do we have? What's the client load? What is the revenue? Service accounts do we have? How many fax programs do we have? And the answer was, well, we don't know. And I said, what do you mean we don't know? And so is when we kind of got this thing rolling and started. Then they made some changes to some of the fee structure, and that they were going to get this thing where every account supervisor was going to be bringing in more clients. They had 3 months to get an additional bunch of clients. And as we rolled into 2000, I think it was 19, and that was kind of the time where Sam was, Sam was going to be, he took the new job towards the end of 2019. We started really ratcheting up the discussion about what is going on. Like, we need answers, we need to understand it. And there's a fine line from a board member through a CAO, through a manager, right? So the CAO is the one that directs the manager. And so we were putting a lot of pressure on Sam to kind of give us some answers. And then it kind of got to a place where towards the end of 2019, Sam put in his notice that he was leaving. And so as Sam was leaving, we had a discussion about, we got to get real answers. We have to figure out what was going on. So we brought Mike Valinsky in and we sat him down and we had a discussion about what was really going on. And he had no answers for us. And we even did a deeper dive into that. And it was evident from a position where we were kind of going backwards and not forwards. And then you guys know what happened. We left Mike Valinsky go. And then we hired Mike. Mike came in as our new CAO, Mike Stilka. And so Mike, we had a meeting with him, and he really kind of got it. Like, he was reading the numbers and telling us what we needed to know, and here's what we have to do to change the revenue stream, and we have to look into what account supervisors are making and how the fee structure is done, because the whole fee structure for MSC was based on commodity prices. If you made a lot of money, you paid a lot of money. If you didn't make a lot of money, you didn't pay any money. And so it really wasn't the right thing, because I didn't become an MSC a customer until 2018. And I was paying more for my tax return through Farm Bureau than I was for before I became a client. And I said, if people are getting their stuff done cheaper than what I am, it doesn't make any sense, because there's a certain amount of revenue you have to cover the workload. Well, it was obvious that over the year or 9 months that Mike was there, he made zero headway. And so the headway is that we decided as a board we had to make some decisions as to move forward. And as we looked at it and had Boyer and Ritter come in and do a deep dive as well and look at some of the things they did, we realized that at that point, we had to do something. We had to make some changes. And the board was when Horizon was interested, it seemed an easy way to move forward to create a soft landing. Wasn't as soft as what I would have liked to have had. But I will tell you that the last 4 or 5 months, I have not had a lot of interaction with it. It was more of the president and Todd as they maneuvered through it. And when you go back and you look at it in hindsight, it's somewhat, you go back and go, well, I should have probably done this, should have done that. But over time, things change. And so it's as a member service that ended up turning into needed to be a for-profit revenue. It just, as people left, as things went, we didn't get the reaction and the action, and we didn't have the people who should have been hired that could have managed it the right way. And so it is a tough situation. It's not what I would call perfect for our organization. And we're going to have to live with where we're at today. And moving forward, we got to be better managers. We have to ask more questions. We got to do deeper dives. It's there is a fiduciary responsibility for an officer. And you get, sometimes people get a little excited when you start asking questions, because it either puts them in a situation where they're uneasy, or they feel like you're out of your role. But you are really responsible to try to get the real data, the real and so, for the future, again, we have to have a more transparency to what's going on in every division, and people shouldn't be worried about it, because we need to be doing the right thing. So that's pretty much the history and how we ended up where we are. And I'm trying to see what I missed there. What did I miss, Doug?
I would say really the only other thing would be, what things do you plan to change to help right the direction of Farm
So in the
Bureau
future,
in the
so
future?
in the future, I think that as we look at where we're heading, as a president, you work with the CAO on a daily basis, and so working with Todd as our CAO, it'll be really important for him and I to have a lot of discussion, a lot of questions, and a lot of things being answered, because I think it's really, really important that whatever we do in the future, and there's some things that I think are kind of in my presentation that I've been giving. I think that there's some services that we can offer. One of the things is environmental. The environmental world is getting tougher and tougher, right? For those who have nutrient management plans, for those who have CAFOs and those types of things, it's sometimes difficult to find people who are qualified to do it, or to find groups that have the time to do it. Looking at what DEP is looking to do in the future with some of these plans, it's going to require more time. It's going to require more money. And it would be great to have Farm Bureau in that market, where we could have some people who could be writing plans, offering benefits to our members, but at a fee that actually is either a profit fee of some sort. I think about the carbon credits. There's a lot of opportunity out on carbon credits. You look at the Dunkin' Donuts and Starbucks, they want to claim that they're carbon free. Well, they're buying their carbon to be carbon neutral, right? And so there could be money for farmers if we could get something put together where if you grow corn, for every acre of corn, you may be able to get another $200 on a carbon credit. And it could be something such as the REAP program that we are using. So I think Farm Bureau has some opportunities out there to think outside the box, to offer some consulting fees, to offer some experts things. And I think it also sets us in a place where if we have people who are doing those things, they're seeing firsthand what's happening. And then when there is issues such as a DEP or conservation office or whatever, they're going to be the first to know. That gives us the leg up on making sure we're proactive versus reacting to certain things that are happening. So to me, that's where I think we've got to go. We have to start building out and figuring out what our members need, what things we can do to help, and to offer those things to help grow our membership.
All right. If anybody else has questions they want to throw out, or Chris, if you have something directly you want to talk about, while people think or bring them up, I'm gonna run up and I'm gonna poke the elephant in the room.
There's an elephant here.
At least there is in my room. Is there not in yours?
No, I
Just
don't
pigs.
I have a piggy bank. That's as close
Okay.
as I got.
I would like you to address the letter that was sent out to Farm Bureau County presidents and to state board members. I'm assuming that you've seen it. The letter from Kyle. Are you aware of that?
I was out all day. I
Okay.
got a message. Actually, I called Todd, and Todd told me that there was a letter that he was told about. Todd sent me that letter. I sat down at my computer, went through my emails. I'll be honest, I got it from Todd at 7:55.
Okay.
So I have not had a chance to read it. I don't know what Kyle is discussing. So
I'll take, I think, the biggest concern from his letter and put that to you in a question.
okay.
He seems concerned with the blurring of the lines between the executive committee and the CAO. And you kind of talked about that in your points prior when you were answering the questions that I had. So how do you see how those roles are supposed to work, how they're supposed to intermingle, but yet how the CAO is a past PFB employee I talked to after getting a letter trying to figure out what on earth the context was. And he explained to me that the CAO is kind of supposed to be a firewall between the day-to-day employees and the executive committee, the president. And so that way the real tough discussions can be had between the CAO and the executive committee, but they don't affect the day-to-day morale of our employees. So can you talk about that whole relationship? Because that kind of was the central focus of the letter.
Well, so I think that at any time the CAO and the executive committee have a discussion that kind of leads into a manager's job, right? Or a direction that we feel needs to go. And that manager is not interested in going that direction, right?
Right.
I think that at that point, you tend to see a strain. So let me go back because I think it's really, really important to understand something. I've traveled the state, so I've heard all these questions, right? And I'll be honest with you, one of my in my roadmap that I gave to the nominating committee, I had over 2 pages of communication, right? Communication. And I think communication is the biggest thing that has destroyed this organization, right? I just think it has. And I think that people assume, or there's a thought process that probably isn't true. And so, I mean, I'm not worried about the elephants in the room or any of those things because I think I know where a lot of this goes back to, right? And so one of the things that happened is when we hired Mike, right? We hired Mike Stalica. Mike said to us, listen, I know how to manage the day-to-day stuff. But he said, I have no idea how to manage the members. I have no idea what the members are looking for. Now think about it. He's out. He was not part of the Farm Bureau circle, right? He knew how it worked, but he wasn't part of it. And he said, what I need from the executive committee, is I need you guys to help me direct the path forward until I get my feet underneath me. And so Mike actually set up a weekly call that the executive committee was asked to be on, to listen to what the managers were saying and to offer context, right? If we've seen something that bubbled up or we popped up or whatever, I used to call Mike Stalica every Friday and say, how's things going? How are we progressing? You know, what questions do you have? Right? Those types of things, because I wanted to be a resource for him. But I will tell you that there was a manager or so that took offense to the fact that the executive committee was sitting in on their calls or on their weekly review of what's going on, what are we working on, et cetera. And that ran deep, right? It ran really deep, because it ran so deep that the person retired and because of my connections within agriculture, made statements that, well, I got to get the rest of my people out of here. And it's sad. It's sad to have a situation where we have a manager, because somebody is sitting in and offering context, because the CAO we hired to manage this organization was asking for help, right? And so to me, what happened was once he didn't need us anymore, or felt like, we started then doing it monthly. And I can tell you that the executive committee hasn't met since May. I think it was May of this past year. And we thought we should have met, especially to review some of the documents that were being proposed. As a fiduciary responsibility to the organization, as an officer, you are required to do your fiduciary responsibility. And so to me, though, I think what was happening is that the word went out that we were managing for Mike Stalica. We weren't managing. It was all on his shoulders to make those decisions, to have those conversations. And the problem is that there was no context or dialogue. Like we weren't putting that out. And so, in moving forward, and I've seen some of the stuff that was been coming in on policies, right? But moving forward, we have to have a plan, right? We have to have a plan. We have to figure out how we're going to do this, that everyone feels like they've got some type of an understanding of where we're going. And so one of the things is that I will honestly tell you that between board meetings, there's very little conversation between board members, between the board itself, from the top down, from the top from president to board members from the district. I want to change that, right? Every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, depending on what's going on, I want to have a Zoom call with the board, right? To be able to discuss what has been going on, what is happening. Maybe to even have a manager or two come in and talk about, hey, this is going on right now, or here's something we're struggling with, or here's where we need help, or who wants to do this? Here's a new idea. So I want to engage the board. I want to have monthly calls with county presidents or county boards. I don't care if the whole board gets on, right? But I want to have a dialogue, because it's too important. This organization is too important to have things bubbling up and having counties upset, or having things in a way that we're not moving in the right direction, in the same direction, right? And once you start having folks going in different directions and having different things, I mean, to hear Russ Reddy make a statement that PFB seems to be in disarray is really concerning to me, right? And a lot of it had to do with the dairy situation, right? And so the thing of it is though our members need to have context. Our county boards need to have context. And so having those conversations, I think, is really important. I think that the board itself needs to have their meetings in different segments. Once or twice a year, we need to move it to a district where we can invite district boards to, board members to come out and have a picnic or have something where you can interact with the board members. It's so important that we communicate and to make sure. I think it's important that we communicate with our committees. As the president, I think it's so important to make sure you know what's going on in each and every committee. Knowing the direction of where everyone's trying to go, we have to make that happen. I think that there's other areas where we have to have conversations. We got to build alliances with other groups. I met with the Grange the other day, and they said, we've been trying to get a meeting with you guys for the last 4 or 5 months. I didn't know it that they were asking for one, but that's important, right? It's important to have collaboration among different ag groups, among different folks. And so being engaged at high levels, it's just not going to be the president. It has to be the state board. I want state board members to be more engaged, more involved with what's going on, because to me, the organization is what makes things move forward. You have to have someone to lead the group in the direction that the policy has us going. But it's important that everyone's rowing in the same direction, because if we're not, it just creates more chaos. And so to me, it's about bringing folks together, being more engaged with what is happening. There's a lot of positive things going on right now. Farm Bureau membership is growing. Different counties are doing so many awesome things. I mean, things outside the box that we need to be sharing, right? We need to have a president-to-president meeting where we hook you up with presidents from different counties, right? And talk about, what is it that I'm doing that works great? Where am I struggling at? Do you have any expertise? I think that we have a lot of people sitting around this state with a lot of great ideas. We just got to somehow get them active and engaged. And so to me, as the president, my job is to rally the troops. My job is to create a positivity, to create excitement that we're getting things done, we're moving in the right direction, and we're growing. People want to be involved in a membership that has exciting things happening. And I think we're poised in the right place. And I'm just excited about it. So I'll stop there.
All right. At this point, I can keep coming up with questions, but if anybody has anything they wrote down that they want to ask, mute yourself and fire away.
I do. It's Mel.
Hey, Mel.
Hi, Chris. All right. So I'm just going to be blunt about it because that's just who I am.
Would not expect any different from you.
Oh, thank God. All right. So we only see you. And I feel like there's a lot of times when we don't see Rick and we're just seeing you. And I want to know why. I want to know why it doesn't seem like the president of our organization is getting as much airtime. I don't know exactly how to put it, but why are we only seeing you on different things versus seeing Rick do things? Like, is there a reason for this? Is there, I guess I'm just looking for the reasoning, like what's going on that we are only seeing you on a lot of things. And I know we've seen Rick more recently, because of this campaigning or whatever you want to call it. But you know, historically speaking, we've seen more of you, and I would like an explanation. What's your take?
Well, so again, we're kind of two different people. And one thing I will say is so from a farm situation, you know, we went independent back in 18. And when I went independent, we actually have we had a part-time person hired. I now have a full-time person hired because of my engagement with Farm Bureau. If Farm Bureau went away, Penn State trustee went away, and all the other things that I do, I could probably let a person go, right? I could do that. But one of the things that I think is really, really important is as an officer, as someone as you all elected to represent you, my job is to seize the opportunities to be engaged and be involved, right? To be able to move the needle as best I can for the organization. And when someone asks me to do something, unless it's outside of the scope, unless it's outside of the mission of Farm Bureau, I try to say yes. When people reach out, I accept it, right? I have the ability to move and do things because of having an employee. It's what, as a president of Farm Bureau, I know that there's going to be at least 1 or 2 days probably at the office of meeting with people in Harrisburg and meeting with different organizations. And so you will see me. You will see me engaged. And I do a lot of things that put me out there, right? Not that it's about me, but it's just people take pictures, people publicize it. I see a lot of things going on in Pennsylvania that require a lot of different things. And part of my roadmap is that each and every one of you that's on this call right now needs to be engaged in some way, somehow. Whatever you're willing to do, whether it's a TV interview, whether it's a radio interview, whether it's on a podcast or whatever it is, I think that we should be doing, RODs should be out filming some of our members with a camera, talking about, so what is it that you do, Howard Rayburn? Tell me about your case, right? Dan, what are you doing today? What kind of farming are you doing, right? Those are positive messages. We have to be able to put more positive messages out there. We have to have more interaction with people when we're not asking for things. Because the only time we go to, a lot of times we go to our people who have the power to give us what we need is when we talk to them. And I want to change that. I want to be able to create a positive thing. You know, I got blasted by a Farm Bureau that I used my Pig Farmer of the Year thing too much. And I tried not to blur the lines of Farm Bureau, right? I didn't use Farm Bureau to do what America's Pig Farmer of the Year was designed for. But the opportunities that it gives you to be out there and to be respected and to have people want to interact with you is huge. And so to me, yes, you're going to see me. You're going to see me. You're going to see, you should see Rick. You should see other board members should be part of this in the future, because I think that we need to have everyone with an active voice. But, over the last 6 months, a year, Rick's, on the farm, and there's times he can't get away or he's doing something else. And so I'm asked to do it. And I always say yes, if I can, because to me, it's an important job for all of our members to be there, to be a part of the conversation, because it is that important. And I hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank
I got a question here, Doug.
Go ahead, Dan.
Actually, Chris, it's a little bit of a two-part. Going back to what we were just talking about, am I not correct that when you became vice president and Rick president, that you guys kind of at that time had agreed that since he was in the western part of the state, that he would handle more things in the western part and that you would handle more things in the eastern part to save on travel and to save on your time and that sort of thing. That's kind of the way I understood it at the time. And the second thing I want to ask, and I'll just go ahead and ask it. I hope you can remember the two things.
Yep.
The other thing is, if you become president and you get on the AFBF board, and when the national scene, or should I say the national scene, takes more of your time and everything, how are you going to handle that with being president of PFB and doing what you're saying that you will do as far as being there for the counties and the members and meeting and all that sort of thing? It's kind of a lot for one person.
So I think it has to be, your second question is that I think it has to be a team effort. There has to be, the work has to be shared. There has to be people. One of the things that I do on the farm is I delegate a lot of jobs, right? I'm a manager at my own farm. And no, I cannot go out and breed every sow. I can't farrow every litter. I can't load every pig, nor do I want to load every pig. I'll be honest. But I think that, to kind of go with the split state, one of the things that Rick and I talked about when he was running for president, and it was kind of unique because Carl dropped out in the last 4 or 5 weeks of his bid to get reelected when Rick was running. And so Rick and I kind of ran as a team somewhat. Like, people knew that I was going to run for vice president if he won. And, so as we were talking about it, one of the things I said to Rick, I said, what is it that you didn't like that Carl, was doing? And he said, well, Carl never included me. And I said, well, I'm here to be your helper. Whatever it is that you need me to do, I'm here to do it. And I want to be that person that helps you through whatever it is you need to get done. And I've always tried to do that. We did talk about different things in different parts of the states and stuff like that, but it wasn't something that we kind of really followed through. It really came down to the fact that when if Rick couldn't be there, the phone call would come from either Lou or Sam saying, hey, Rick can't do this. Can you do it? And I would always try to say yes. I always tried to be there to do it. So it'll be the same thing. Whoever my vice president will be, you got to delegate the jobs. Now, the national side of it is I do have a lot of knowledge, and a lot of the states know me. I've been involved since 2013 with AFBF. I started the P&E committee. I ran it for 4 years as the chair, and we had some great successes. And so most of the state presidents, up until when COVID hit, everyone knew who I was, knew what my capabilities were, knew where my drives were. And so I think that getting on the AFBF board, I think is something that we need to have representation there. I believe that I would try to get on that board ASAP, right? To make sure that our voice is heard. But to me right now, our focus has to be Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. We have to be involved at the national level, but I'm concerned about our state organization, and my focus has to be there for a large part of it, just because I feel like we've got some rebuilding to do. We've got to grow our membership. We've got to grow our influence back. We have to communicate more. We have to be more engaged. And I'm willing to put in the extra time, because my farm, we sat down and discussed this. My employees, I have a manager that I've hired, and they all have sat around the table on our weekly meetings, and they're like, Chris, this is important not only to our farm, to every farm in Pennsylvania, and that they are committed into making sure that we get there. And so I think that as the president, yes, I'm going to put in time. I'm gonna probably put in more time than Rick has put in, only because I'm going to be able to do that. But it can't just be me alone. It has to be all of us working together. And I need as many of you to be a part of that success, because many hands make a light load. And so that's the way I always do it. It's the way we always try to do it on the farm. And I will never change that. It's not about me, it's about the organization. And you guys are the organization.
Chris, there was a few good questions dropped in the chat by Dwayne Salem. I'm going to read them in a bit of an out of order manner.
Okay. I'll let you read them so I don't have to put my glasses
on. All right. If you are elected president, who is going to be your vice president? And are you willing to stay on as a vice president if Rick wins?
We'll go with if Rick wins. I'm still going to be your vice president. So you guys will decide next year whether you want me back, right? If that's the case. As in who will be my vice president. So that will be decided upon the state board. And one of the things is that there's been 3 or 4 people who's already have been talking in the communities that they're interested in running for vice president. And so the board will have to plan a day to sit down and interview each of those candidates, have each of the candidates present why they want to be the vice president, justify how they can do it and have the time and this and that. And then it'll be down to the board. The board will make that decision, who will be the acting vice president for 1 year. And then next year you would then, as a delegate body, will choose to elect the vice president. So that's how that works.
Okay. You've talked about fiduciary responsibility. It sounds like the executive committee, the board, and the CAO dropped the ball on this over the past few years. How will this change going forward?
Well, I think that what it takes is having the president and the CAO having conversations, asking hard questions. It doesn't have to be something that's granular and bold and the whole world knows, right? But I truly believe that it takes being there, it takes being engaged. It's kind of like on my own farm, right? If I was never there, after a while, I wouldn't probably know where we're losing money or where we're making money, right? So you have to engage, as I do with my manager. You know, we go over the things that in we have a manual, but we set up goals, right? How are you doing to the goals? Where are we missing it? Where are we succeeding it? Right. So to me, this is going to be more of a job than just a figurehead, right? It to be engaged, to truly understand what the organization is doing. It's kind of like any other thing. You have to know what's going on. I sat down with Keith Eckel, right? I admire the man, right? He's done a lot of great things. And as I talked to Keith Eckel and I talked to him about his role and engagement, I see kind of the same things. I know Keith Eckel, I'll tell you that right now. The guy is amazing, I feel, right? But it's one of the things Keith does is he analyzes and he engages and asks questions. And you know, he was the chair of the nationwide board, right? And so those are the things that got him to be successful. And I think that you know, having those situations where you are having those one-on-ones and engaging and sitting down and understanding what everyone's doing. Again, it's going to be between Todd and I, right? Those are the questions and things we have to have. And then when I see something that's not going in the right direction, then, you know, it got to bring it to the board, right? The board has to know it. And we have to make a decision on how we're going to move forward. But it's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take time, and I believe that I'm willing to put that time in for the success of the organization.
Okay. This question's from Howard Rayburn. What will be your top 2 goals for PFB if you are elected president?
Well, first off, the top thing is that, to be honest with you, we need to get all the counties back in step. We got to get people communicating. We got to get people working together. And I personally feel like that we've got some disconnects, right? The other part of it is that I want our we're going to be asking you guys for your top 2 or 3 things that need to be done. The issues that you have, like we're going to have all these policies. I believe I've seen 372 policies or something. You guys are crazy this year. But you know, I want to be able to start focusing on what is important, right? I want to get those things queued up, and we want to start moving. We start putting plans together of how we're going to address these things and to make things so that we can be successful of winning those issues that are important to our members. So getting communication started, getting the board engaged, getting them understanding what's going on. Communication will be one, and then setting the direction of what we're going to be dealing with, and then building relationships as we move forward. So that's probably 3 things. There's going to be a multitude of things, but we got to set our direction. We got to start working towards it, and then we have to make sure we're communicating it out so everyone feels engaged and involved.
All right. Question from Caitlin Bell. In your opinion, what is the biggest threat to PA agriculture? And if you're elected PFB president, how would you plan to address that threat?
Well, I think one of the biggest threats to agriculture is probably environmental. You know, I think that the environmental side of it can really put a hurt to a lot of what we try to do, and it costs a lot of money to address some of the environmental things that folks are focusing on. So I think that would be one of the things that's going to be kind of difficult in the future. But I think that PA agriculture, on the other side of it, and I had an interview today with a lady out of Pittsburgh, and so I think that Pennsylvania agriculture is actually set in the right place to be successful, because we think about the population within a five-hour drive of us, right? So I think that folks who want to have sustainable farms, have niche markets, have the ability to create some type of revenue stream is pretty good. Even where you guys live, you have even a better direct connect than what we have probably in Juniata County. But the opportunities are there. And so I think that do have challenges, but I think the success rate that we have is even better. because of the opportunities, because food is a powerful driver. And we've got to continue to have those conversations to making sure that we're in the right place and setting up our members for success. And that's one of the reasons why I think having monthly calls or bi-monthly calls with our counties is important to know what roadblocks you're running into. How can we help? What do we need to do? How do we build relationships? All those things.
All right, before I read any more that are in the chat, it's 9 o'clock. We said 8 to 9. If you're willing to keep taking questions, Chris.
I'm willing. I'm willing till we're done.
Does anybody have any they want to say themselves before I go back to the chat for a few more? I don't want to abuse everybody's time, but we're having a pretty good discussion.
Doug, this is Harold Holman. I have a question for Chris.
Go ahead, Harold.
Chris, can you, I may be a little ignorant on this. Can you tell me, do the president and vice president get any kind of compensation or perks from that position? And what are they?
So we get our expenses paid, and then the board sets per diem when we're out and about. When we go out, we get a per diem. Other than that, there's no other perks that go. Well, I shouldn't say that. Rick gets a car with an expense account. I do not. I get paid mileage when I'm out traveling. If I get a hotel room and I have to stay overnight somewhere, but I typically don't do that. I usually like if I go up to northern PA or even come down into your area, I usually turn around and I drive home because if I don't have anything the next day, I want to be at the farm. I want to be able to do what I need to do. So, but we get a per diem. Rick gets a car, and we get our expenses paid when we're out on the job.
Generally, what is the per diem?
It's set by the board.
And what is that?
I don't know if I can tell you that.
I mean, where's the transparency in that? That's
well. We were always told we weren't allowed to discuss that, so I don't know. I'll have to ask.
I mean, that's not a very transparent thing to have. I mean, that tells a lot about the board, and it seems like they must really, and this is not against you, operate in secrecy, and I guess that's why the organization is failing right now, because they do operate in secrecy. There's no transparency.
Okay, well, that's fair. I mean.
And that's nothing against you because,
right. No, I get it. I will check with the board to see. I was always told that we weren't to discuss it outside of the room. So I'm okay to tell you because it's at the end of the day, the amount of time I spend, I don't take per diems unless I'm on the road. I do Zoom calls all day long. I don't take any per diems. I spend a lot of time, but I will check. I don't want to say anything that I'm not allowed to say because I'm not sure I'm supposed to say that. So
no, I understand. I don't want to get you in trouble, but it just goes back to it's really showing why Pennsylvania Farm Bureau is in the shape it's in because of the board operating in secrecy, no transparency. And some of these people must operate under their own cloud. I mean, it's sad, really sad. But thank you. And if you check into that,
hey, if it's okay to be shared, I don't care. I'll share it. I mean, it's I'm fine with it. I mean, I don't set it. They kick me out of the room every year, and I will tell you the per diem has not went up since I started. In 2014, it stayed the same the whole time. And actually, Rick and I have said we're not interested. You don't need to give us anything more. And to me, I'm fine. I mean, it's not about the money. I do spend a lot of money on my own farm to be able to be a part of Farm Bureau. So at the end of the year, I probably invest more money than I take. But yeah, I'll check on it. I'll let you know.
And well, hey, here's another, going along with that per diem. Does the state board actually get compensated somehow?
Yeah, you guys had voted on it about 3-4 years ago. They get a $300 a day per diem when they're out and about doing the work of the state board. So when they come to a state board meeting, they get $300 plus mileage. And one of the things is that back in 2006, I got $100 is what it was when I started. It was $100, and there was a lot of people who said, I can't do this for $100. If I got to leave my farm, I got to pay somebody to do something. And so it was moved where it went to $200, and then it was a sliding scale. Every year it went up by 10%. And I'm not sure who came up with that, but after a while you start taking 10% on 10%. You can kind of do the math before you know it. It was getting a little out of hand, and we locked that in at $300, and so it is there until the delegates change it. And I don't see it changing. I don't think anybody's even asking to have it changed, but that's how it is.
All right.
Thanks, Chris.
Yep, you're welcome.
I'm gonna swivel to one of Dwayne's questions in the chat. I'm going to put my own spin on it. The executive committees can be fairly involved with the CAO, as you discussed early on in our meeting. Maryland Farm Bureau, the executive committee is elected by the delegates. They put all of the board members into these big groups, and then the delegates select who's on the executive committee. Currently, our board selects it. What are your thoughts on that? Are our grassroots really being shown on the executive committee? Does it end up being more who knows the most people? Are we keeping it? Is Pennsylvania as a whole being represented well on the executive committee? And would you be open to any changes to try to make it that the delegates would have some say in that?
Well, hey, I'm open to whatever changes that that we need to make that makes the organization stronger. One of the things that the executive committee it has changed. The process has changed over the time. So when I got on the executive committee for my first year, Rich Schumann was going off, and Rick Schumann had met his tenure. And so what normally would happen is that a board member would be on for 3 to 4 years before they could build an opportunity to get on the executive committee. And so you kind of learn the path forward. A lot of people who come on the state board will tell you after you go through board training, and it's a day and a half of training, that, wow, I didn't know Farm Bureau was this fast. Like it had this many moving parts. And so it does take a couple years to build that up. Now, one of the things that used to happen doesn't happen today. And I don't like it. And as the president, it's not going to happen that way, right? But one of the things that's happened the last year or so is that the executive committee stayed the same. And there was a motion made by board members that I'd like to re-select the same executive committee. Now, Rick and I are on it regardless, right? Because we're president and vice president. But there was a motion made that we should keep it the same. And I'll be honest, I don't ever remember anyone bringing up a situation, well, hey, I was interested. Now, in the past, it was never done that way. And once Rick became president, he kind of did it differently, and it's his prerogative. But one of the things is that we would have a nomination process, which I think we need to go back to. We had a nomination process where you would be nominated by somebody on the board, right, to be on the executive committee. And so you may end up with 6 people nominated for the executive committee. And then you would start doing secret ballots. And there was times where we had 3 or 4 elections for executive committee, and it would change. It would change based on the job that people were doing on the executive committee. And so it gives everybody the opportunity to get their name in, to be able to be part of the executive committee. And so the representation is based on the folks on the board who feel like they would be able to carry the mission of what needs to be done through the executive committee. The executive committee doesn't do a lot of different things. We would meet at times to discuss different types of issues of hey, we got this correspondence and we need to discuss it, or we would get updates on employee, like what's going on, employee things, things that you don't want the full board to hear, because it was more of a personnel matter, and it was just the CAO wanting to kind of level the playing field a little bit to show or to understand different things about, hey, we have this issue. We got somebody inquiring about suing us, or account supervisor wasn't doing their job, or, we just hear different things, right? And then the executive committee, basically their role is to set salaries for employees. So in our bylaws, that the CAO recommends employee pay raises for employees, and that the executive committee then has to sign off on those functions. So there's things that we do as an executive committee, but it's not of things that you would want to be put out there into the mainstream, right? It's more confidential stuff with employees, and it's just kind of the CAO going, I want to cover my butt. Like I want you to know what I've done here, right? And it's not something you want to tell the full board. I'll be honest, we've had some issues with the full board and confidentiality. So I think we got to work at that and do better at it, because it is important to be able to tell the board everything. But if you can't, or if things get out, it's harmful to the organization, especially if it's things that need to be kept confidential. So hopefully that answers your question.
Muted. I was muted. Any other questions that aren't in the chat? I think in one way or another, we touched on everything that's in there. Maybe not completely directly, but does anybody have anything else for Chris?
Hey, Doug, I do.
Go ahead, Mel.
Is she allowed to ask 2 questions?
I don't know.
Well, it depends. Let's see if you want to answer this.
Okay.
So, and I just want to be clear, because I'm not sure I actually do know. I think I have an idea, but just for transparency's sake, who is on the executive committee? Like, we keep talking about the executive committee made decisions on this, that, and the other. Who is all on the executive committee?
So it would be Dave Graybill, and it would be Johnny Painter and Jim Barber. So Susquehanna County, Tioga County, and Juniata County. Now Dave is going off the board because he's reached tenure, and so there'll be opportunity at this point for someone new, someone different, to be joining the executive committee. But that's who's on it. And they are chosen by the board. The board makes those the same thing as the board will make a suggestion for vice president, or will actually put an interim vice president in.
All right, I want to close with this. I think this will be a good question to close on, tie a bow around things. This is from Dwayne again. What is your education and experience background beyond farming and your role with PFB?
Well, my education background is that I went to high school, graduated high school, and never went to college. Our family did not have the money and the dollars that felt we could go. I started working as a laborer on a farm for a feed mill with pigs. Worked myself up within a year where I was managing pigs. I had 850 sows. I was the manager. I had 4 employees at the age of 19. And one of the greatest learning experiences I had is that the farm was owned by investors. And every month I had to come in and sit down with 4 scary, rich investors who would look across the table and say, well, are we going to make money or are we going to lose money? And then why? Why either way, right? And so I learned very early on at the age of 19 of how to run a business. Even though it wasn't my business, it was how to run a business. But I also realized that if you were successful, that it meant that there was a lot of opportunities. And in 4 years, I was able to, in 2 years, I bought a brand new home. In 2 years later, I sold that brand new home and bought a farm and built my first barn. 4 years later, I doubled the size of our farm. I built another farm and put a nursery and an isolation barn. Went through a divorce, and 2 years after that, I bought another farm. So I don't have the college education behind me, but I do have a business mind that I feel is very, very important to run an organization. I think that I've been blessed, and I'm trying not to brag, because I'm not trying to brag, but I have been blessed to be able to have an ability to connect with people. And I'll just kind of give you an instance. You know, I was asked, it kind of went back to the America's Pig Farmer days, but I've been continually being on the Operation Main Street, which is an advocating platform for the National Pork Board. And I've been asked to go speak to groups outside of agriculture. And I got to speak to a group in Lancaster that was nutrition and food service professionals. And you'd say, well, why in the world would a pig farmer want to, why would you be talking to those people? The interest in how food gets to their clients was a huge connection. It was such a connection that they asked me to go to the DC, Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey, and West Virginia meeting. There was about 150 people in the room. And the connection that we made during that hour conversation about food, family, dedication, science, technology was unbelievable. They filled out a survey at the end that even the National Pork Board said, we've never seen a survey filled out with this much positive things, right? Now I have a great message because it's talking about pigs, right? Because I love pigs. But the thing of it is people want to know. People want to know where their food comes. They want to know the farm to table aspect. They desperately want that information. And so having the ability to connect with people, I think, is really, really important. I don't know what all happened here with Kyle and any of this stuff, because I have not read that. And it's a shame if he felt disenchanted, if he felt like things weren't right. He has never conveyed that to me. He's never conveyed that to Justin. You know, but you know, it's sad because we failed, right? We failed somewhere in the connection. We failed somewhere meeting somebody's needs. And so I take that personal, right? Any of these types of things it's a personal thing, because it's not who we are, it's not who we want to be, and it's not who we strive to be. Because to me, Farm Bureau is about food, farming, and success of our members. And so I will always advocate that direction. I will always fight hard for every member, no matter what the issues. We need to meet our members' needs. And so, you know, to me, I have every skill. I mean, the skills that I have are the skills that I have, and that, you know, I use everything I have in my toolbox to be as successful as I can as a person, as a business owner, and, you know, as a friend and a colleague. So I'll let it at that. And I do appreciate all of your time and that you all got on here and spent almost an hour and 22 minutes with me. I do appreciate that. I'd like to see all your pictures, but it's good that 5 of you put your picture on.
Well, thank you, Chris. Really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us, answer some questions, and everybody who joined, thank you. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you in Hershey.
I have to say this, you know, I'm asking for each and every one of your votes on the 16th. You know, I don't take any of your votes for granted. I do appreciate what all you do, and I appreciate the time you gave me tonight to at least come together and answer some questions and try to collect clarity. So thank you again.
All right, everyone, have a good night. Thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, see ya. Thank you.